A rock can create fire. And if a rock can create fire, how much more powerful is one human life?
It's good to have you all here. Rest yourselves. Let me start by thanking Bonnie, not just for that very kind introduction, but for all the work that she and her crew and her family put into making this important documentary.
One of the things is not in the film was an example of how Whitney Young dealt with racism, which, as mentioned, was often with humor. We have to have dignity as human beings. We have to maintain that dignity, and we are responsible for that ourselves. And so this was one of the important lessons, I think, that Uncle Whitney was able to use in his life and to really share.
Relevance is usually defined as that which lies in front of us, something that's on our doorstep. So that when we lose our job, of course, that's relevant. But if the school down the street doesn't have enough books, somehow that's less relevant to us. But we must expand our definition of relevance to include others. Scientists tell us that we are 99.9% like each other in terms of our gene pool. That's just on the biological level. On the social level, we know that the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, all have another person's hand in it. We are interconnected.
My own example of that happened when I was working in Los Angeles as a broadcaster. The Columbine situation happened, and I was very angry about the way the media, in particular, was portraying young people. Because what we need to be talking about is the culture of violence here, and not isolating these young people. But there was an obstacle, and that obstacle was my immediate boss. I said to myself, this is going to be my new best friend. And so I really thought about him from that perspective. I really tried to open up my heart. And what was really fascinating about that was he did become my new best friend. He was the person in the newsroom who said, let her do it, let her do it, let her do it, let her do it. And that program, which talked about peace, was called Seeds of Peace, was able to get a Golden Mike Award, and my news director said it was the best thing she'd done all year.
As long as you can find somewhere along the way that person who gives you that encouragement in your heart to continue to do the right thing, I think that sees you over the difficult places. You know, we can see all the money that gets drained constantly from America. And, you know, can we put this back into our own programs at home is the question. And do we have the will to do it? You know, these things have been going on for a long time. This circle has been happening for quite some time. And I think a lot of times, you know, my personal opinion, is that we default in our responsibility in letting politicians make those choices. But I think the more relevant piece for us is, it is about we the people. It is. You know, it is or it isn't, and we have to decide.
But does that dilute the message?
Well, you know, I think it's really important to really understand that the message always was about the democracy. I mean, the slogan of SCLC was to save the soul of America. And Whitney Young's ideal was to have America live up to her ideals. So I think the vision of those who planned the march, who were working behind the scenes, was really always about inclusion. And so I think a lot of times the media has narrowed the definition. So I worked with a man who said, don't call it the civil rights movement. It was the justice movement. It was then, and it still is now. What's important is to have ultimately the human beings evolve so that they can overcome their own greed in a capitalist society, or their own anger, which happens, you see, played out on the world stage across the board, their stupidity for differentiating themselves from others and judging. It's the judgment that is the evil. It is the separation that is the cause for confusion, because we are interconnected. And if we trust that, and if we do our work rather than looking for somebody else to do their work alone. My experience is that I feel better, but also I have more power ultimately to make the kind of shift in the world that I want to see.